In this video, we will be discussing the hypothetical syllogism. The hypothetical syllogism is a deductive form of reasoning. Think of this as a formula. The hypothetical syllogism consists of two premises and the conclusion. A premise is a statement, and a statement can be true or false. So when we're making arguments and we're giving someone reasons to support our conclusion, in logic, we call those statements premises. So there's two premises or two reasons that should lead us to this ultimate conclusion. The conclusion is denoted by these three dots, and you can read that as therefore, or so, or thus. The hypothetical syllogism consists of conditional statements. A conditional statement is an if-then statement. So if someone says, if A happens, then B will happen, that's a conditional statement. Premise 2 is also a conditional statement. If B happens, then C will happen. And the conclusion is a conditional statement. If A happens, then C will happen. Whatever comes before the arrow is the antecedent. Whatever comes after the arrow is the consequent. So in this case, the antecedent is A, and the consequent is B. And you can think of B as the consequence of A. When we move to premise 2, now B is the antecedent and C is the consequent. So how does that happen? When we move back to premise 1, we said that B was the consequent. But whatever comes before the arrow, the if portion of your statement, is the antecedent. So the B went from being the consequent here to now becoming the antecedent here. If B happens, then C will happen, and C is our new consequent. C is the consequence of B. The ultimate conclusion here is that if A happens, then C will happen. Keep in mind that the order of your premises doesn't matter. So whether you put if B then C in premise 1, or if you put if A then B in premise 2, the conclusion would still follow. You can think of it as making arguments in the real world. The order of your sentences or evidence doesn't really matter because at the end of the day, you're still giving the same information. Anything that you can get to fit into this form is immediately valid. Your argument could be valid by virtue of its form because it fits a recognized form of reasoning, such as the hypothetical syllogism, but that does not make what you're saying true. You could make a valid argument that does not reflect reality or that doesn't make any sense at all, and it could still be deemed valid because we're only talking about the form of the argument. The most important part of doing logic and philosophy is evaluating statements and premises for truth. Now we're going to do an example so we can concretely see how we can use the hypothetical syllogism in the real world to make arguments. So on this end of the board, you will see the formula itself. If A then B, if B then C, therefore if A then C. Each of the variables, A, B, and C, are in a different color to correspond to that variable in the premise. So A is orange, B is blue, and C is yellow. Premise 1 reads, if it is a bird, then it has wings. The antecedent, A, is orange. The consequent, B, is blue. Premise 2, if it has wings, then it can fly. B is now the antecedent because it is the if portion of the conditional, and the yellow is C. C is the consequent. The ultimate conclusion of the argument is that if it is a bird, then it can fly. Since these premises all properly correspond to the colors in this formula, right off the bat, this is a valid argument. Earlier I mentioned that validity does not equal truth. So right now we have established that this argument is valid. The next step is to figure out whether the two premises that the author has given us are true. I want to introduce the word sound. A sound argument is not only valid, but the premises are true. If at least one of these premises is false, this will not be a sound argument. It will only be valid. Premise 1, if it is a bird, then it has wings. In order to come up with a counterexample, we need to try and imagine some instance where something can be a bird but not have wings. It just so happens that there are birds that don't have wings, such as penguins and ostriches. So in premise 2, they are relying on us believing premise 1 in order to link to step 2, where they're now saying that if it has wings, it can fly. And then they're trying to conclude that if something's a bird, then it can fly. However, we were able to come up with an example of where something can be a bird, but not be able to fly. So we questioned the truth of one of the premises and successfully came up with a counterexample. This conclusion is not true. The argument is still valid because it fits the form of a hypothetical syllogism, but the substance and the premises that the person has given us are questionable. Therefore, this conclusion follows logically, but it's not true. For us to have a sound argument, it not only needed to be valid, which it is, but the premises all had to be true. So the last example we did was valid but not sound. So let's take a look at this argument and see if it comes out as sound. Premise 1, if he is a bachelor, then he is an unmarried man. A and B correspond to the first premise of the formula. Premise 2, if he is an unmarried man, then he is not married. This also corresponds with premise 2 of the formula. The ultimate conclusion, if he is a bachelor, then he is not married, which also corresponds to the conclusion of the hypothetical syllogism formula. This argument is valid. So it's valid because it fits our hypothetical syllogism form. But as we've discussed, soundness is more important than validity alone, because a sound argument will be not only valid, but the premises will be true. So let's evaluate the premises for truth. If he's a bachelor, then he is an unmarried man. Can we come up with an example where someone could be a bachelor but somehow be a married man? The answer would be no. By definition, a bachelor is an unmarried man, so premise 1 checks out. Premise 2, if he is an unmarried man, then he is not married. Is there any counterexample to this where someone can be an unmarried man yet somehow be married? The answer is no. Both of these premises are true. By definition, bachelors are unmarried men and unmarried men are not married. This conclusion is guaranteed to be true and to follow. If he's a bachelor, then he is not married. This is an example of an argument in the hypothetical syllogism form that is not only valid, but sound. It's sound because both of the premises are true. This conclusion is guaranteed to be true.